As a dedicated aviation nut, the odds are very good you've seen that video before. I certainly have. It's widely circulated on the internet. That is an accident that happened in August of 2020 at Toronto's Buttonville Airport. Unfortunately, Buttonville Airport is closed now. It's no longer there. The land was sold to developers, and that is a tragedy when an airport is lost, as is this accident. Fortunately, the pilot was not seriously hurt. He escaped with minor injuries. The aircraft was destroyed, and there was substantial damage to the hangar that he clearly hit. Our purpose in this is always to learn what we can from mistakes, whether those are our mistakes or somebody else's. In this case, we don't want to be making fun of or laughing or deriding this poor guy who had a really bad day. Rather, we want to look at what happened in this instance. How could we prevent that if we ever find ourselves in a similar situation? And how did that actually happen? What were the circumstances that caused this airplane to leave the runway where he was very near the center line, go almost completely off to the left side, then across the runway, 100-foot wide runway, all the way to the other side in the grass, across the infield, about 500 feet until he impacted a hangar? Clearly that happened. Let's look at why. Initially, he touches down reasonably well. A little flat, maybe on the right main, but not bad. He's a little to the left of the center line, but that's not the end of the world. But you'll notice here, he's correcting with a little bit of aileron. We can see his knees, they aren't moving. He's not using rudders for directional control here. That's something that very often low-time pilots really have a hard time grasping. In the air, we want a coordinated input with aileron, elevator, and rudder so that we have nice coordinated movements in the air. On the ground, the ailerons are good for a crosswind correction to keep the wind from getting under a wing, but we steer with the rudders. Remember, this is a 1973 Cessna 172M model, and the nose gear is interconnected with the rudder pedals. So the rudder in the back and the nose wheel in the front are both connected to those rudder pedals. He should be making a little bit of a correction with right rudder here, but he is putting in a little bit of right aileron, which really isn't going to help him. On the upside, he has his left hand on the yoke and his right hand on the throttle. That's good. He is doing his best to be in control of the aircraft. And then it all goes wrong on him. You'll notice as he drifts left on the runway, and as I said, this is a 100-foot wide runway, so he's just to the left of the center line. He's got about 40 feet to go. He drifts all the way up so the left main is actually going into the grass. All of a sudden, he pulls in back pressure on the yoke, full throttle, and we can see his right knee. He puts in a fair amount of right rudder. I think we could agree too much. Now, it's possible his thought process was, I'm going to do a go-round, and that would be an excellent choice. Now, we can't really tell because of the video quality, where are his flaps? Does he have them all the way down? Is he using no flaps? Does he have 10 degrees? We don't know. Just adding full power is a good start to the process, but he just goes too much rudder. And instead of correcting and going down the runway, he literally crosses the runway and heads off into the grass on the other side. Notice what he's doing with the yoke. It's full back. He's trying to take off, it would seem, but he's gone from reaction to overreaction. His brain is no longer functioning normally. He's not thinking in logical terms. He's just reacting to the situation with fear, which is a completely natural human experience. We have to train to get past that, and without disparaging this guy, I think he's just a little too early in the process to understand what his options are fully. As he hits the grass on the opposite side of the runway, he's now got both hands on the yoke and it's all the way back. He's got full power in, but his hand's not on the throttle anymore. So that's out of his mind. That's just a thing that happens. If we let go of something when we're under a lot of stress, we're no longer thinking about it. Everything for him is about that yoke, and he's pulling back. He's trying to force this airplane into the air. He's moving fast enough that it's possible the wheels are light. He had not rolled out that far, so he's probably still up in the 45, 50 knot range. But he's zipping across that grass infield where reports are there are a couple ditches there, and he does not fall into them and stop. So the aircraft is light. Holding it up like that is doing something to get some weight off the wheels, but he's not holding the brakes, and he's got full throttle. That's kind of an issue, and that's going to bite him in the butt in a moment. As he passes through the grass in this last portion of this excursion off the runway, he gets onto the paved ramp area. Clearly something's wrong now. So he puts in full right aileron. Now, you and I know full right aileron on the ground isn't going to do a whole lot. We're looking for directional control and speed control and command of this aircraft. And that's not what we have going on. Right now, we're in that PIC that Pat Brown warns us about. We've shifted from pilot and command, and yes, he's a student pilot, so it's solo time, to passenger in crisis. And that's where this guy is mentally now. He's doing everything he can think of to steer that airplane and miss the hangar. But he's not doing everything he needs to do to actually control the airplane. And that's truly sad. What I find amazing about this, and really worth your attention, is from touchdown to crash site is only about 20 seconds. That's not very long. It really is a very short period of time and a relatively short distance. He travels about 500 feet from the runway to the hangar. Certainly rolled down the runway for a bit, but we're talking about maybe less than 1,000 feet total and 20 seconds total to go from what feels like a normal touchdown to an actual crash that destroys the airplane. Fortunately, the student pilot walked away with relatively minor injuries, and that is the good news in this. Airplanes are actually fairly robust, and they do provide a certain amount of survivability. But let's talk about what we can learn from this, and how can we prevent ourselves from doing this in the future, because in all honesty, part of the reason we don't make fun of this guy or anybody else we see videos of, that could be us. That could be me. We are not infallible. Touching down with a little bit better control of the airplane would be ideal. Yes, he has his left hand on the yoke, his right hand on the throttle. That's excellent, but it's fairly flat. You don't hear the stall horn go off in there. He's not really dissipating energy as he comes down to land. Because of that, his ground speed is a little higher than it needs to be, which means control on the ground is a little more challenging than it should be. It would be ideal if he had been looking way down the runway and pitching up as he came in, so we heard that stall horn and then it touched down on the mains. Getting on the center line would also be terrific, but remember, that is a coordinated thing while you're in the air. It's not just aileron or just rudder. It's a combination of the both, and we're using pitch as well because we're flaring to land. We're trying to stall the airplane onto the runway. Once we get on the ground and realize we're left of center line, a very common problem in low-time pilots, we want to make a relatively gradual shift back to the runway. We don't need to get there right away. We just want to slowly move back to the center line. And if we notice we're drifting left, that's okay. Just add some right rudder. Now, should we come to the determination that the go-around is the thing to do, and there's nothing wrong with doing a go-around. I did a go-around on my first ever attempted solo landing. It was a horrible setup. I admitted it. I went around, came back the second time. It worked out great. And I even got a compliment from the tower on good decision making. Doing a go-around because you don't feel you're under control is a terrific idea. But you have to do more than just shove the throttle in. We've got to have directional control going in our favor. And in that case, there was never directional control. From touchdown on, the pilot never had directional control of the aircraft. Pushing in full throttle, great. Still heading down the runway, good. As soon as you realize you're leaving the runway, throttle comes out, brakes go on if necessary. We do want to get this thing at least slowed down dramatically because with the prop spinning at maximum RPM, with the engine howling, there's a lot going on. We're zipping across the ground. our anxiety and fear level is going up, which means our ability to think creatively and do appropriate things is going down dramatically. It's really important we get control of the aircraft. We don't have to go around, that's an option. But if we've lost directional control, just get this thing slowed down and stop it. Finally, when we see this pilot unfortunately trying desperately not to hit the hangar, both hands on the yoke, full deflection to the right, we've departed from anything that even resembles pilot decision making. This is just a panic move. And again, I am not making fun of him. If I was a low-time student pilot and went off the runway like this, it's entirely possible I would have done exactly the same thing. But we have to think about what we're doing and what we could do and what the circumstances might be. This is one of the reasons chair flying is such a valuable tool to any pilot. We can sit right here in this chair and think about, how do I control the airplane? I can run through the entire takeoff pattern and landing sequence in whatever airplane I'm flying, sitting right in this chair in the studio. Anybody can do that. And if we do it, we know speeds, we know configurations, we remind ourselves about coordinated turns using rudder and aileron, we remind ourselves about steering on the ground with our feet, putting that center line between our knees, always making an attempt all the time to control the airplane. And if we find ourselves getting out of control, what are our options? On the ground, that very well may be pull the throttle out, if need be, kill the mags, apply brakes as appropriate, and just get this thing stopped. We'll figure it out later. When you're mentally overloaded, that's not great. I wish you all the best in your aeronautical endeavors. I hope nothing like this ever happens to you, but I will tell you in all honesty, one of the best protections you have against it is watching videos like this and really thinking, how did this happen? What should have happened? And how do I prevent this from happening to me? Thanks so much for tuning in. It's always good to have you here. Please click the like button down below. Leave me a comment. Let me know if you agree or disagree. Do you see anything in this video that I don't? Let us know about it. And of course, subscribe to the channel because we're just growing and growing and growing, and it's fantastic to have folks just like you involved right here at MadPropsAero. I'll catch you next time.